Oh yeah, it's going to be one of those videos with a big, huge mystery box from the early 1900 era, and what could possibly be inside here? It's an original electric vibrator. And by vibrator, obviously, this wasn't for sexual pleasurement. This was only for massaging yourself and for healthful reasons, trying to put a date in this thing. The closest looking one I can find is a British company called OG and Co Limited, London, Glasgow and Birmingham, but I'm not sure if it is that one. They called it the Acme vibrator or Acme. But here's the odd thing. Also, in this box, along with all the vibratory heads, which are still rubbery, although some of them have degraded quite considerably. In this box, I'll get the box out of the way. I'll show you what's in here. It's got the various knobbly bits, including melted rubbery stuff over that, and this hard one that goodness knows what that is, and a fibrous disc that just God knows what that is, and cork and things. Oh, we'll keep this out. This is a little tool for maintenance. I'll put this out the way. And the things that are worthy of note are these are not part of this. I'm not sure where these came from, but these actually do hint at the Victorian electrotherapy era, because these look like handheld electrodes for electrotherapy machines, and this looks like a physician's tool for connecting a wire on and applying electricity to bits that needed healing with electricity. So that might hint at the age of this. So let's it's got a square pin plug in it, an unsleeved square pin plug. There is a ground, it is connected to the metalwork. I've not powered this up yet, quite worried. Going to power it up though, and we'll see what happens. It might just go bang, so I won't put anything in it yet. I'll just sit it like that. This could get very loud, indeed. So this switch in the handle here feels like it has multiple positions. Don't know. It's got indented positions. Let's try plugging it in the first position and see what happens. This is where it goes bang and blows the lights out. Nothing happened. That's a good start. Next position. It still works. It does actually still work. Okay, let's put a thing in it. Is this wise? Oh, I can smell it. It smells like carbon brushes. It's got carbon brushes. How old is this? I just want to know how old this is now, because this is ancient. It's got that look to it as well. Unless it's a reproduction, but I don't think it is. So let's plug it in. It does have different speeds. And that vibrates backwards and forwards. I shouldn't really be putting that on my hand. You just never know where that's been. Right, so we know it works. That's good. Let's take it to bits. Oh, it's stinking of carbon brushes. Let's take this out. So this has a very checkered history. These were sold originally as health devices. If you had a headache, you were supposed to apply it to your head, and by vibrating your head, that would get rid of the headache. It comes with this tool. That's quite nice. It's very ornate. We'll put it on and we'll use it. It is unplugged at the moment, I should mention that. I am surprised it worked and didn't explode. That is very impressive. Might be shaking slightly because you just never know when you've got something over 100 years old and you're plugging it in and it's made of metal. So it's just a motor, little washer there, with a concentric shaft in it. If you see the shaft, that is what's agitating this backwards and forwards. Interesting. Let's take the brushes out. Let's strip this thing to bits and see what condition it's in inside. So there's the brushes, little cylindrical brushes. That's quite cute. Yeah, so these things, they were originally sold for healthful vibrations, but obviously they were used for other things. And they were really popular for a while, for reasons. And then in the 1920s, the mid-1920s, they started appearing in erotic material being used by ladies upon themselves, and suddenly they became disrespectful. Oh, this doesn't actually go down there, so that's not designed for that bit. Let's treat this with dignity and use the correct tool. Let's use a pair of pliers, which is not quite the correct tool, but it's okay. So they fell out of favour in the mid-1920s. And then they got favour again in the late 1960s, but with their actual real purpose. They were just used for salacious filth then. There's the motor. It's in pretty good condition. Bit dirty, but that's okay. What do you expect? Okay, what is down inside here? The wires, including the earth wire, can you see that in there, are just coming up out the side of that handle. I kind of want to take this handle off. Oh, there's a little washer in there. I'm not sure where that came from. That might be from the back. I'll guess it did come from the back, from the bearing. Right. Oh no, that is actually the brush. That connection there, that's actually one of the brushes, and that's one of the brushes too. Oh, the wiring does look a bit perished in there. Tell you what about we take this handle off? Is this a good idea? Probably. And we'll see this speed control. I'm going to guess it just switches windings. There is that theory, that folklore, that the first vibrators were used to relieve Hysterian ladies. I'm not sure that's quite as accurate as is implied. It's a nice story though, which is probably why it's popular. These are all fairly standard. This will probably unscrew. And then do I need to take this out? Is this sacrilege taking one of these to bits? It probably is. But you know what? It saves MD else taking theirs to bits. This is crunching slightly. I get the feeling that if the insulation was worn, it's definitely screwed now. Fibrous. Oh, that is super crumbly. That is not safe at all. So here's the switching mechanism, and it's sandwiched in the middle here, that switches power through to the other side. How does that come apart? I don't know if that will come apart because it's got things soldered directly onto this. No, I don't think I want to go any further into this. As it is, this is not safe to use really. I only see 2 wires going up into that. Oh no, I see 3. There's 3 wires. One is the common, and one, the other ones are the 2 speed controls going to the tapped windings. Yeah, if I disturb this, it's going to crumble. And as it is, you know, it's just a bit shady. That looks like the standard insulation tape of the time wound around that, the fabric, rubberized fabric. The earth connection is coming around here, and it is going onto what looks like the shaft with more sticky tape wrapped around it. Oh, is that just taped onto the shaft? It must be bound on some other way. Yeah, I'd like to kind of open this, but I just don't want to open this because I get the feeling that if I do part that, it will potentially, springs will ping and it will ruin its authenticity. But I think we can tell that there is probably a little spring ball bearing or something because it clicks, and that will just be sliding contacts. I'd guess that these connections on the side here are going to pads, and then this is just a contact sliding around. Yes, and then just a universal motor. It's quite neat. Very simple, just with that concentric shaft there. Or you can see the off-centered shaft. Well, this shaft is centered, it's this bit here that does the vibrating backwards and forwards. Very neat. So let me know if you could possibly even put a date in this thing. There's been a label across the top here, presumably at some point in time, but it doesn't have the same size as the only closest image I could find, which was the OG and Co Limited. But this is it. This is your vintage vibrator for massaging your ailments away, or indeed pleasuring yourself. That is it. Interesting. I wonder what the story is behind these. I wonder where the rest of the equipment is for these, because as I say, these are handheld electrodes and absolutely nothing to do with this whatsoever. Very interesting. It just basically gives indication that the person who had this also was into electrotherapy in other ways as well from that era. Very interesting. So there we have it, the electromassager from the past, or as they actually called it back then, the vibrator. Bonus extra footage. I'm exploring this a little bit deeper, and this flex looks more modern than the original flex. This could well date back a long way, because having removed some, well, let me zoom down this. Having removed some of the insulation here, the wires have been twisted together. So perhaps there was an original wire that has been joined onto, because I don't think they do this in the normal manufacture. Could be wrong though. Maybe this was the standard way of manufacturing, but I really would think that the original flex would have been soldered directly to these connection points, because these are soldered. And that makes me wonder, what is the earth connection then? So let's see if we can get the earth connection and see if that looks original, or if it's been done later on as a safety feature. So that is soldered on here, but again the wire has been twisted on by the look of it. Let's get that off, and we'll see what we have under here. Another twisted connection. I think it is. It's right at the end, or is it? Yeah, that looks as though it's kind of twisted on. Yeah, it's twisted there. So this flex may have been added later on, and this may actually genuinely be a Victorian vibrator. Wow, that's incredible. That's really surprising. The flex did make me think this looks like a slightly more modern, fairly good condition, rubbery sort of iron flex. But now that makes sense, now seeing these twisted pudding joints in here. Pudding joints is what we call them in UK, when they'd basically twist a joint together and wrap it in the black tape because it looked like a black pudding. The temptation is to put a new flex into it. Perhaps an authentic flex of the era, resolder it onto this directly, and then solder it onto those connections, which I have marked now, just for reference. But there we go. Interesting stuff. It may actually have vintage pedigree after all.